Help us change the culture by buying our latest single from Timcast Records, Only Ever Wanted, by clicking the link in the description below. From Timcast.com, Sandy Hook families ask judge to remove Alex Jones from control of his company. Now, I don't mean to say this story literally specifically is Democratic operatives trying to cheat. What I'm saying is the things we have seen levied at Alex Jones in general are destroying his ability to run his company. And along with many other people, the censorship ramped up tremendously in 2018 and is still persistent, with now the revelation that the FBI made a request to Facebook, and then Facebook was like, oh, we better censor this Hunter Biden laptop stuff. The moves made against Donald Trump, the moves made to censor stories, the destruction of Alex Jones in InfoWars and all that stuff. And for all of the things you can criticize him for, I get it. The fact is, they're going after speech. This would not be necessary if they were winning. They wouldn't need to go after Alex Jones unless Alex Jones was actually a threat to the establishment.
Yeah, just saying his name is giving him publicity.
That's right. What's happening now is, in the lawsuit, the families are alleging that he's funneling money to Free Speech Systems. His company is funneling money to a family member. I say, according to the motion, Free Speech Systems claims to owe a massive secured debt to an insider that was first reported when the cases against Jones began, but no records show that debt existed prior to the lawsuit. Attorneys for the families are now requesting a bankruptcy trustee assume control of his company. They have also requested the court appoint a tort claimants committee to investigate Free Speech Systems' business dealings, and for the court to remove FSS as the debtor in possession. This is kind of crazy because people talked about this when Jones lost his lawsuit, or I shouldn't say when he lost it, he was in default, but when he was sentenced to pay, this 45 million or whatever, 50 million. Imagine you cut a deal with someone, legit, then they get sued. Or let's say they're getting sued and you don't know, and you do a deal with them. Now the court's coming after you and they're going to take from you because of something he did. How is that legal? That to me is crazy.
I would think that would not be.
That's what they're doing. They're basically saying that the other people who Alex owes money to is illegitimate and should be basically suspended. That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Desperation.
This is what I think. Well, look, the families are asking it, and I think that has a lot to do with they want the money that they sued him over, and if he's broke, ain't no money to get. So this is the course they take. But my point is, you are seeing a lot of stuff launched at Alex Jones. You are seeing a lot of stuff launched at a ton of people, and it's going to get crazier. You think the midterms are crazy? It's like we're a couple months out, and it's getting nuts. They raided a former president's home, unprecedented. Imagine 2023, 2024.
It's almost like they're throwing spaghetti at a wall because they're hoping some of it will stick. That's exactly what it feels like to me, and it does look like desperation. Like they're getting crazy.
This is how you know when your spaghetti's done. You guys know this, right?
You throw it at the wall, it sticks.
You pull out a thing, you throw it at the wall. If it sticks, good to
I'm
eat.
just start doing that. That
You know what's
great.
good about, say, an Alex Jones type of person, not to speak for him or anything, but a lot of people on the right are people of faith, let's say. You get a Marjorie Taylor Greene or something like that. They are trained because of their faith it's like we're conditioned to suffer and take it. And that's when the qualities of the right shine the most, is when you're oppressing them. And it's like, wait, why aren't you staying down? Why do you keep getting up? And it's like, no, I actually kind of love this.
I think that... Oh,
no, it's just they worship a guy whose whole shtick is he was beaten to death and then he came back to life. So it's like the more you oppress, say, a Christian or something like that, Judeo-Christian perhaps, the more they're like, oh, wait, I'm actually more in alignment with the person who I'm supposed to be emulating.
I find it's a psyop. I think that the Catholic Church on purpose made people believe that they're supposed to suffer and that they're bad so that they would become servants to the church.
Okay, so this is actually something that Viktor Frankl observed in his time, and Fyodor Dostoevsky also observed it in his time in concentration camp in Soviet Russia. He observed that people who followed religions were impossible to stop. You could not keep them down.
No.
They firmly believed they were following what was true. And I think that's, and you can obviously prove that that's 100% divorced from the church. It had nothing to do with the church. This was something that they held inside themselves.
They're taught scripturally.
Exactly.
This is what, like, the hardcore disciples in, say, the Book of Acts or something.
Yeah.
You're the most in alignment. You're the closest to being like the disciples who, like, they're like, no, please torture me more so that my resurrection is better.
Yeah, it's interesting.
St. Paul has said something like that, where it's like, I want to have an even more, I don't know, I want to get more buff points or something when I level up and when I'm resurrected. No, because at the very core of what they believe is that, I mean, they don't talk about this very often. And maybe I'm going on a tangent, but at the core of Christianity is you expect to be resurrected. So even if you're thrown to the lions, literally in early biblical times, tortured to death, whatever, that actually brings you closer to it's kind of like you if you're not being tortured, maybe you're doing something wrong.
Right. In fact, in Revelation, one of the things they were talking about was how God despised the lukewarm church.
Yeah.
He's like, you were neither hot nor cold, and for that reason I spit you out of my mouth.
You're
I
just
have
kind of
nothing to
there,
do with you.
yeah.
You're just there.
But I was talking about this the other day, and I'm not going to apologize, but talking about lukewarm Christians and that sort of thing. And even with the vaccine mandates and you weren't allowed to go to church or any of that stuff, I would still hear stories about people going to church and meeting anyway, even though the state told them they weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where you find where the lukewarm Christians were, is the ones who kind of just like, oh, I'll do whatever the state tells me
Right.
to. It's like, no, actually, in the early church, again, we were meeting underground when you could be found and killed.
You
Like,
know,
you remember...
Oh, no, go finish your idea.
You know the origin of the Jesus fish?
I was
thing?
going to say that. That's
Yeah,
what I was going to
exactly,
say.
yeah.
One person would draw a crescent, and then the other person would finish it, creating the shape of a fish,
Secret message.
so that you knew it's
We
like...
are fishers of men.
That's
Yeah.
right, exactly.
But that's, I mean, honestly, that's when you feel the heat of your faith, really, is when you can die for it, but you still believe it anyway. So I have family members who are so, not to say too much out of respect, but like I know one that was facing their death, let's say, or is facing their death. And that is when they are the most themselves, and everyone's like, how are you holding it together? And it's like, no, I'm going to go see Jesus soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Love it.
So again, I'm complimenting Christians in the sense of like, the more you push them, the more you force them to like, hey, we're going to be mean to you and we're going to dox you or we're going to swat you.
Bring it.
They love it. And actually, I don't know if the left understands this because maybe they don't believe anything.
I think they
in
don't
this.
really believe in Christianity because they dismiss it sort of outright.
Sure.
But like throughout the Christian Bible, there are the reminders of like, set your mind on the things above. I think there's a verse in Colossians about that, where it's a constant reminder that like what's happening on earth is not your ultimate end goal.
No.
And I think if you aren't a person of faith, that's very difficult to embrace because like the idea of eternity and the consequences of your actions here, you know, for some people, this is all you have. And so you have to do whatever your ultimate ideology is, you have to pursue it intensely, whereas Christians aren't driven that
It's not
way.
their home.
I want to address, you were mentioning about getting backed into a corner, and then, what were you talking about? Like did you say a rat, or what would you say? Just like...
No, just if I'm forced to retreat, eventually there's going to be a cliff behind me.
You know what I was thinking? Do you guys see that video of the lady being attacked by the rabid fox?
Yeah, what the heck was that?
That made me feel like the summer of love, like the analogy. It's like you're sitting there minding your own business, you're watering your lawn, and a rabid fox just runs up and attacks you for no reason. And you try and kick it off, but it keeps biting you. Then it bites onto her hand, and she's like swinging it around and then throws it. And then she's got a gash, and she got puncture wounds. Then she's got to get the rabies shot. And it's like, man, she didn't even do anything to anybody, right? That's how it felt with like the BLM riots. So a lot of people talk about how, someone super chatted, the establishment is losing, but a cornered rat bites the hardest. And I'm like, you got two choices. You can go and water your flowers and mind your own business and the rabid fox attacks you. Or you can be proactive and chase it off with the hose because they're hydrophobic, and then it might get into a corner and freak out. But what do you choose? Do you choose to say, I'm not going to allow you to come into my house? Or are you going to say, I'm just going to go over here and ignore you, and then you're eventually going to bite me?
Yeah.
I think being proactive and saying no, just saying no, standing up, even if it means, you backing the establishment to a corner.
That's the problem I have. I do believe that the faith in God or in a perception in something greater than the physical experience that we're having is important, and it gives me faith in saying what I believe regardless of consequences often. But the feeling of being okay to be a servant is disturbing to me because I think that's church propaganda, that they want people to be subservient so that they don't rise up and overthrow corrupt governments and systems. And I don't like seeing people backed into a corner. I don't like seeing people act out of fear. I don't think they should have to. And if you're proactive, you don't have to because you put yourself in a position of stability.
Here's what everyone's got to do. When someone's being mean to you on Twitter, respond by just being nice. Even if you don't want to.
Turn the other
Swallow
cheek,
your pride.
as they say.
All right? Swallow your pride. All right? And then when someone says something nasty to you, just say something nice back and leave it at that.
Choke on the rind.
I don't know what that means, but
Feel it, keep it empty
Stick
inside.
it in your ear.
You were
One of
spitting some
my-
sweet lyrics.
My favorite
well, I mean,
advice.
quite literally, like a
six.
lot of people will be like, I'm not. This person slighted me. I'm not going to. And I'm saying, yes, swallow your pride. It means like, don't stand up and be like, I refuse to accept. No. You have to accept that in strategy and being a tactician requires winning. Winning is not someone insults you, so you insult them back. All you're doing is flinging mud. If you really want to win, someone insults you, you be nice to them and completely stop the fight. The fight you win is the fight you don't engage in. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, an interesting thing also to consider, to add to what you were saying, Ian, is at the bottom level or the top level of Christianity, like I don't think a lot of them practicing understand how crazy this is. Like they actually think that they will be resurrected, like actually. And not in an abstract way. They mean like bodily, like in X thousand years.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
A lot of people probably don't believe it. Or
I
it's
think-
too crazy.
I think that when I talk to the learned religious folk, they don't say stuff like that.
It's too weird. But
Well,
It's
that
disturbing
is
because there's the thing of if you're a servant and you let yourself be controlled now, later you'll be a king. And you're like, that's just a manipulation tactic to get people to serve, I believe.
one could say that. I mean, biblically speaking, one could try to argue that those verses were added later on down the road. Like when you look at the different manuscript translations, and they have found a lot of old manuscripts that are super, super close to when the disciples had written most of the New Testament, the apostle. And it's pretty much, they have not changed very much.
Yeah,
over time.
consciousness, dude, is going to rise. Your spirit is alive and active. Well, maybe not alive in the sense of our bodies, but it's a momentous organism, you could say. It's not, of course, it's not an organism. It's not carbon based, but whether you're a slave in life or you're a hero in life, your soul is still going to live on. It's still going to be there after.
Well, in that sense too, like you could just say the Christian is embodying what Jesus did by Jesus still lives on through them, by them continuing what he said and basically promised. So and to go back to why an American would stand their ground and why we love standing our ground culturally, we are certain that by doing that, the next generations who inherit America from us are going to benefit by copying that behavior. I'm going to stand my ground and not retreat, and that will probably end up preserving the country, as opposed to if I keep backing away and ceding ground to enemies who keep trying to push me. They don't even have to fight me and they'll win the ground. But if I stand my ground and force them to fight and engage me, it's going to get ugly, and maybe it's going to cost them more than they want to pay. And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, and forcing people to take, they say turn the other cheek. It's like, no, I am in fact willing to let you hit me, and I'm daring you now to hurt me even more, because eventually that will make me win by default. You are the aggressor, you lose. Like, look what happened to Rome. It became Christian because it was originally a secret religion and you were killed for believing it, but eventually it became the religion of Rome because, among other reasons, they were persecuting them so hard, everybody became a Christian.
So I think about this with the raid on Donald Trump, and it looks like they're trying to indict him on something. I said it before. A lot of world leaders, historical leaders, good and bad, the persecution led them to rise to power.
Yeah.
Good leaders that we like in history and bad leaders we don't like in history. Making someone into a political martyr doesn't tend to work out for their enemies.
It makes you look like, hey, why are you being mean to him? I'm going to go support him. I want to support the underdog.
I think that's why this attempted complete decimation of Alex Jones and InfoWars as a whole is miscalculated. I think there is if you are part of the Sandy Hook families, it's much more emotional. I think there are politics behind it, but of course it's more complicated. But I think ultimately they need Alex Jones to not become a martyr, so they need a complete wipeout. They can't leave any remnants of what he's left behind, because in a lot of ways he was a gateway for a lot of people to become supporters of Donald Trump, and they can't have that again.
I think it was James Lindsay who mentioned on the show that he was on a plane with a woman, and
Yeah.
then she said that she didn't like Trump, but this raid against him was wrong, and it was a step too far.
Right.
Yeah.
They shocked the system hard. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.